All right, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. It is May the 6th, and this is another meeting of the Research Triangle PowerShell Users Group. And tonight we are so proud and happy to have a distinguished speaker, Don Jones, who will be giving us his keynote presentation from the PowerShell Summit tonight for our group. So what we'd like to do is welcome Don and turn it over to him at this time.
Thanks so much. So the title of this, it's funny, we put this out on Twitter a little bit, and a couple of people were like, wait a minute. The title of this is you're more than just a scripter. And they're like, well, but I am a scripter. Like, yeah, of course you are. That's fantastic. But you're more, and you can be more. So that's what I wanted to kind of make this about. Now, I want to start by talking about a minute when I was new in IT. This was a very, very long time ago when I was new in IT. Here, Mike, if you hit the next, I want everyone to see this photo. I had to dig really hard to find this photo. Look at this fresh face, optimistic. The world was full of possibility. Sadly, this wasn't actually that long ago. It's been going downhill fast. So look, when I was new in IT, this was, say, the late 90s. I was working for Bell Atlantic Network Integration, and scripting was logon scripts. Like, that's all we had was Kickstart. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but you're aging yourself if you do. VB script came out a little bit after that, but the IT environment was different. I think when I was at Bell, and the division I worked for, we were probably running, I don't know, 1,200, 1,300 employees. We had maybe less than a dozen servers. One of those servers was just running a giant CD jukebox for people. It was a different time. And you just kind of went to the machine and you logged in and you did what you needed to do. I remember one time we hired a new guy, and he'd been on board for a couple of days. He'd gone through company onboarding and all that stuff. He said, yeah, I'm going to go install one of the new print drivers. I'm like, yeah, okay, no problem. Because our backup domain controller was also our print server with like 120 printers hooked up to it electronically. And he went to install a new print driver, and of course it had to do a reboot, and so that took down the entire domain controller. That's what life was like back in the day. Things are a little different. There's a beeping noise. I'm gonna mute someone. Anyway, that's what things were like back in the day. Is you walked up to the server, you punched a few OK buttons in a wizard, and you moved on. And there was a couple other things. I mean, if you were in the industry back then, I want you to just think back, like close your eyes and go back in time a little bit. When I was new to IT, our environment had exactly one operating system. It was Windows. And for some people, maybe it was NetWare, but it was pretty much one of those two. Maybe you were in a big company and you had Unix machines because you had money and you could buy that type of stuff. But we didn't have a lot of machines. We didn't have a lot of variety. You really could specialize in just one thing. You could do just one thing. And, well, things have changed a bit, haven't they? These days, it's all over the place. Look at Microsoft Azure. You would think that Microsoft Azure, like Microsoft, right, they're going to be double down on Windows. There's more Linux machines running in Azure than there are Windows machines. Microsoft has their own build of Linux. If you're a younger person in the industry, you're like, well, of course they do. Everybody and their brother has their own build of Linux. Amazon has one, Google has one, of course Microsoft has one. I'm pushing 50. Like, take it from my perspective, this is not the world I grew up in. That Microsoft has their own build of Linux. Like, things have changed. We're all over the place. And the big thing that I've learned is that you can't just be known as an employee, as a career person. You can't be known for that one thing that you really love and you're good at. There's a lot that has to connect to it. And that's why the title of this is You're More Than Just a Scripter. That might be the biggest value you offer to your company right now, and that's fantastic. But there's so much more that's going to have to connect into that to keep that career moving over the next few years. So let's rethink what I call your MVP. This is not Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. This is your minimally viable product. You are a product. That's why you get paid money. You are a thing that somebody wants to buy for the stuff that you can do. So rethink your minimally viable product, the least amount you can do to be a viable career person in our industry today. 10 years ago, I was standing on stages at conferences telling people, hey, you need to use source control. Like, it's time to grow up. Today, that's just table stakes. Like, don't even walk in the room unless your code is going into source control. If your code's not good enough to go into source control, you need to get off the keyboard and walk out of my building. Documentation, things like unit tests. If you're writing in PowerShell, that's probably going to be Pester. Documentation and unit tests, that's just basic professionalism. That's just a person who says, I have a job and I know how to do it. Good-looking code, that's your resume. I want to tell you something, because I imagine most of the folks here, and maybe you can hit the little hand raise or thumbs up button or whatever it is on the reaction button. Most of the folks here are probably primarily in an IT operations job. And if you are, hit the little thumbs up or smiley or whatever else. Here's an interesting thing. I want to talk about certifications for a second. This is almost a tangent, but I promise I'll loop it around. IT operations people have always kind of bought into vendor certifications, right? The MCSE, the CCIE, all these other things. Developers never really have. Like, I mean, I'm not saying developers never took a certification exam, but developers, they don't care. You know why? Because a developer is a little bit like a graphic designer. Graphic designer goes off to a job interview and they've got a big suitcase, you know, like this 30-inch wide briefcase with pictures of their work. It's their portfolio. A developer can do the same thing. If they go into an interview and somebody says, well, you know, how can you code? Is your code good? You can look at my code. Here's my code. Us folks in operations, like, we can't take the last network we built along with us. We can't take our previous company's Active Directory. We can't build a portfolio. And so we had to buy into these certification exams. But man, if you're a scripter, if you're in automation, your code is your resume. Good looking, well indented, well structured, well designed code is who you are. So rethink, like, as you go about your daily business, rethink what you as a minimally viable product really mean. Of course, it's source control. Do you know how to use Git? Of course I do. That's dumb. That's table stakes. I wouldn't be in here talking to you if I didn't know how to do that. You know, do you know how to write unit tests for your code? Absolutely. I'm a professional. I get paid to do this type of thing. So yeah, I definitely know how to do that. In fact, let me show you some of my code, because that's what's going to make you hire me. And look, if you're not looking for a job right now, that's cool. Just remember, you might someday. And so that's a reason to behave like a professional right now. I think the big message, and let's just dive back to 80s music real quick, is to do not be a one-hit wonder. Do not be the person. Oh, Mike, you got to hit the button. I got a great, there, yeah, look at, who knows who that is. He flips houses now. So look, the deal is, you've got to expand your world. You got to go beyond just the things that are comfortable for you. You can't just do the one thing. It's got to be Linux and Windows. It's got to be PowerShell and Python. It's got to be Azure and AWS and Google. You know what the biggest thing? So I work for a company that does enterprise IT training. And the biggest thing we hear from every single one of our customers, multi-cloud, multilingual, multi-operating system. Nobody is going to bet on one thing. Nobody is going to put all their eggs in one basket anymore. We are done with that. That was when I started in IT, where you could bet on, yep, we're just going to do Windows and Exchange and SharePoint. That's fine. Nope, those are gone. Everybody wants to hedge their bets. Nobody wants to get locked into one vendor. Everybody wants to have options. Everybody wants to move fast. Everybody wants to be flexible. Everyone wants to know, what is the tool that will get me this business outcome as fast as possible? And what's the best tool for that job? So you don't need to be an expert in any of these things, right? You just need to be able to move and flex and do all the right things. So let's talk for a second about where the job gaps are right now. Even if you're not looking for a job, I think it's important to understand where the holes are in the industry. Understanding where the job gaps are helps you understand where the industry is moving as a whole. Doesn't mean you need to want one of these jobs. It just means that this is where the industry is going. And if you're not going to be on the train, then, you know, maybe you're going to get run over by it. Data Data's a big thing. Everybody's got too much data. They don't know what to do with it. And so data analytics, big data, machine learning, artificial intelligence, data engineering, big words for jobs that actually aren't that hard. Like I've got a friend who's a data engineer. That's his job title. He's pulling down 150 or 160 or whatever a year, works toward the middle of the country, so that's pretty good money there. All he does is sit around and help people build dashboards in Tableau. Like, it's not hard. He's like, my job gives me a lot of free time. I love it. He's fulfilled by it, but it's not terribly difficult. InfoSec. I don't know if you've watched the news, but security became a thing at some point. Ethical hacking, white hat, incident response, security operations center. These are big fields. Software development. Pretty much any kind of software development you want to do, somebody's willing to pay money for it. Here's the thing, though. Pure IT operations, like the guys and the gals who just keep the servers running, it's pretty well staffed. It's low growth. It means that if you're in that type of job now and something happens to your company and you're not able to keep that job, it's going to be tough to find another one. There's not a lot of openings there. There are some. Needs are in configuration management, automated, declarative configuration management, Ansible, Puppet, SaltStack, that type of thing. Cloud engineering, that's killing everybody because it turns out cloud engineering isn't exactly the same as on-prem. Like, the rules are different and the money is different and the resources are different. How you connect things together are different. Those are a lot more high growth. I've talked to customers who are desperate to skill people up in cloud operations and cloud engineering, and it's killing them because a lot of their people are like, no, I'll just keep working with the servers we've got here. I know PowerShell, that's enough. I mean, it's great, PowerShell, but it's what you do with it that matters. And these are the areas where the world needs people and where the world is really focusing. And again, it doesn't mean you need to want one of these jobs, but knowing that this is where things are going helps you line yourself up. So look at what learning PowerShell has done for so many people. And I'll have a screenshot in just a minute that I want to show you, but PowerShell has been transformative, not just for people's organizations. It has been transformative for people's careers, for their jobs, for their salaries, for what it means to their families, for what it means to their satisfaction. And it's not the only thing out there that can do that for you. Take a look at this screenshot. This is something somebody put on Twitter. And just 2 years after deciding to dive deep into the PowerShell scripting world, today I have 2 job offers on my desk, both predominantly based on PowerShell and Azure Infrastructure Automation. This goes to prove how much value this technology can bring. I'm not a programmer or any sort of developer. My love for PowerShell was pure automation. I've got 100, literally 100 stories. I went through and counted them because I'm including some of them in my book, just like this. And PowerShell is not the only technology out there. My whole thing is here is you're not just a scripter. This is not the highlight of your career. This is an amazing skill and it can transform your life. And there are other amazing skills that wrap right next to it that can also change your life. Be willing to expand into those other things. So I want to talk about what I consider the ultimate job skill, the one thing that you can do that will future-proof you, and it is, I can learn quickly. It's the ability to say, yeah, you know what, boss? That is the right tool for the outcome that you said. That's the right tool for the job. I don't know much about it. I know a little bit about it, but give me a minute because I can learn quickly. I will go find out. I will be the person who can make that happen. So if you haven't exercised your learning muscle really recently, it is time to take that thing to the gym and work it out for all it's worth. Because your ability, look, I think Jeffrey Snover said this, if you were looking for an industry that didn't have a lot of change, look at lumber. We haven't had a new tree in a long time. But if you're going to be in IT, there's going to be change. This is an excuse I hear a lot. I'd love to be always learning, but my company, maybe they don't use this technology, or my company doesn't really invest in learning, or whatever. But a couple things there. Take a look at this. This is a book I think you should go get. Organizations were not born to understand learning. Think about that for a second. Think about what your company does for a living. Think back however many years you have to. Maybe it's 200 years, maybe it's 20 years, maybe it's 2 years. Think about when your company was founded. Think about what your company was founded to do. Learning was never part of that for most of us. Teaching people to learn, incorporating learning into the company culture is something that they have to learn. It's something that you're just not born doing that. And so if your company doesn't seem supportive of learning, there's a reason. They didn't just pop out and get founded as a learning company. Maybe learning, maybe this isn't your company's problem. Think about that for a second too. Like this whole idea of, yeah, I want to do lots of stuff, but my company is not real big on learning. Maybe that's not your company's problem. This next one, this is what I hope. I've had a lot of smart-ass quotes over the years around PowerShell. Would you like fries with that? Every time you use right host, God kills a puppy. Served me really well in educating people. This next one is the quote that I hope goes on my tombstone. Your employer only owns your job. You own your career. Your employer is responsible for giving you only what you need to do what they ask of you and no more. Anything beyond that, anything that you want to do to make sure your career can get you a new job is your problem. If you're like, yeah, you know what, Don, I get it. I'm a Windows person. I'd love to also become a Linux person. I'm a PowerShell person. I love PowerShell. But you know what? I see how Python fits into some environments. I'd love to learn Python. Yeah, but my employer won't teach me that. That's not their job. You own your career. You're the one who gets to decide where that goes. Now, speaking of learning, talk about learning for just a hot second. Speaking of learning, let's look at some facts about information technology skills. And Mike, I'm a couple ahead of you. Information technology skills are some of the highest paying in the global job market. Fact, apart from being a doctor, a lawyer, or an Indian chief, one of the highest ways to make money on our planet today is to be in information technology. IT skills are some of the most readily self-taught professional skills. Roll it around in your mind for a second. If you're a civil engineer, you got to go to college. If you're a doctor, you got to go to college, and then you got to go to college, and then you got to go to college, and then you got to be an intern. If you're a lawyer, it's 7 years of college, and then you got to be an intern. If you're an IT person, a lot of us, I never went to college. A lot of us didn't. Some of us did. That's fine. But you can teach yourself technology skills. And unlike almost any high-paying job on planet Earth, technology skills lend themselves to more global and remote work than most skills. You can do these things from anywhere on the planet. So as you think about your learning journey, as you think about your career, as you think about, I'm going to expand myself a bit. I'm not going to be a one-hit wonder. I am more than just a scripter. I am a problem solver. I am someone a company hires when they got stuff that needs to get done, and I'm the one who can figure out how to get it done. Look behind you. Stop for a minute and don't worry so much about what's next on your career path. That'll come back. You'll always have time for that. Look at the people who are on the path behind you. For you to help someone unlock tech skills, even at an entry level, even teaching a kid how to just stand up a Wi-Fi network and getting them interested in that, teaching them a little bit about how routing works and how DNS works, you're helping someone lift themselves up to a better place in their lives. To share your technology skills opens opportunities, and you can open opportunities for people in your own home, in your own neighborhood, your own community, across the world, because a lot of this IT work does happen remotely. So think about that. Ask yourself, what can you do to help? And for those of you who've seen my book, and this is the cover of the newest version, and I'm really, really proud of it. This is going to be the last edition of this for a while too, I promise. Be the Master 4th edition is really all about that. And if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, man, I really enjoy coming to these Research Triangle, PowerShell user group presentations, but I could never present. I'd really love you to go to bethemaster.com, download the abridged version. It's free. Like, it is more important to me that you read this than it is for me to get a buck off of it. Read it. If it doesn't make you want to present at some future user group meeting, read it again because you read it too fast and you missed a bit. Like, this is a real core message here. Your career, you're more than just a scripter. You're more than just your job. You're even more than just your career. You can be other people's careers. You can enable something amazing in people. And like, one of the things from the book, wouldn't you rather your life be measured by the lives you've helped than by your salary or your job title? And that's what this book is all about. I hope you'll take a minute to at least get the abridged version. It's free. It's got the core message in it. Read that. It won't take you long. It's not a huge book. You know what? Make it a goal for yourself. Make it a goal to present a session at PowerShell Summit 2021, another conference, a user group meeting, your own workplace. Get up in front and help other people. Like, help them. You do have something valuable to offer. It is shocking. And I'm going to give you some examples here. It is shocking how much impact a single small contribution from a single person can create. This is one of my favorite quotes, and it's something that I'm not a big quote person. This is one of them. To see people who will notice a need in the world and do something about it. Those are my heroes. They didn't just click like. They didn't just retweet. They saw a need, and it might have been small. This doesn't need to change the world. You can just change one life. To see a need and do something about it makes you a hero. I want to highlight a few heroes, people who I don't think get enough attention. Doug Fink. Doug is so knowledgeable about Excel that he created a PowerShell module that lets us programmatically modify Excel spreadsheets, create them, modify them, manipulate them, and it's not using that BS .NET Office crap. This is like the real deal. And he's just the nicest, most humble guy, but he's made an immense difference in people's lives. Jim Christopher. Jim's a colleague of mine at PluralSight now. One of the people who worked on the provider API in PowerShell told me, as I was researching my new book, told me we really screwed up on the provider API. We made it too hard. It's too complicated. Not enough people are going to write providers. Jim went in and wrote a wrapper around that called ships and opened that up to the entire world. And he didn't build a bridge or a giant building, but it's impacted people's lives and it's made them make their lives easier. Chrissielemare. Chrissy is like, I want to be Chrissy when I grow up, if I ever get to do that. She's a dual MVP. She's an MVP in SQL Server and PowerShell. She's leading this DBA tools project, which is massively impactful on so many people's lives. She's living her best life. She decided you know what? I want to live in Belgium. And damn it, she went and got a job and she lives in Belgium. And she runs a cooking show on YouTube, and she does Cajun. I mean, I could just go on about her for hours. I love what she does so much. Adam Driscoll, and I know you guys know who he is, but Adam's been around in the PowerShell community for a ton of time, and he's created stuff like the Universal PowerShell Dashboard, Snack, the PowerShell tools for VS Code. None of us would, like, VS Code would not even be an option for us. We would all still be in the ISE if it hadn't been for the work this guy has done. He has changed the landscape of how PowerShell fits into the universe. PowerShell as a cross-platform thing is primarily viable because of the work that PowerShell tools for VS Code has brought to us. Like, if I can't edit this in VS Code on my Mac, I'm probably not going to use it. That's just how it is. Speaking of massive impact, Jacob, the guy who basically created and still maintains Pester, some of the first open source code that has ever shipped with a copy of Windows. Like, that's mind-blowing impact And no one's building statues to this guy. He's just a guy. And we can all do that. Like that's the thing. And I'll give you one more example. This is an example of a guy who wanted to change how we did our jobs. He wanted to change how we lived our work lives. And everyone told him he was wrong. And he had to convince a ton of people and really battle it out. And his name's Jeffrey Snover. And it's the impact, one person who sees a need and just says, you know what, screw it. This needs to be fixed. I'm going to handle this. Jeffrey will tell you he's a flawed human being, and that's why PowerShell is so great. He doesn't put himself up on a pedestal. He didn't go to college either. Like all the things we're taught about success and being able to create impact and all that, he did it anyway. And his efforts and the people that he rallied to help him and the people he inspired, that's why we're all here today. So all of these things are things a single human being initiated, championed, and made indispensable. And they usually started really small. Like looking at PowerShell now, it's even hard for me to remember that version 1 only had like 139 commands built in and a tiny little 12 command scripting language. They started small, and they were usually trying to just solve a problem for themselves. And at some point they realized, you know what, other people have that problem too, and I might as well try and solve it for everybody. This happens around us every day in big ways and in tiny little ways. And I think that's the thing, is a lot of us think we can't contribute, or we're afraid to try because we can't make a big impact. We can't be a Jeffrey Snover. You don't have to be. You can make a small impact. You can make a small change. You can create a positive impact as well. You know what? Sometimes you just need to be visibly who you are. Sometimes it's just showing a young kid that it's okay to be a nerd, or showing a young girl that it's okay to be a woman in technology. And that can just be a small, tiny impact that balloons into something enormous. Don't ever underestimate the impact that you think you can have. And here's another way to think about it. Don't solve problems for others. Create ways for other people to solve problems on their own. That's the heart of scripting. Like, if we're doing it right, that's what we do. I'm not creating a solution for you. I'm creating a tool that you can use to create your own solutions. And so can lots of other people. And I'm becoming a force multiplier. My effort has a 10x effect because of that. Here's your second. Now we're going to switch topics just a bit. Here's your second best job skill that you can have. Understand the business. If you can walk into an interview and you go, what's your strongest job skill? I learn quickly. Yeah, okay, what's your second strongest job skill? I understand the business. I know what the business is about. That's huge. You gotta know this stuff. Like, if you're gonna work in the business world, you can't play a game where you don't know the rules. You gotta know this stuff. So I'm gonna give you 2 or 3 examples of things you gotta know. Here's the first one. Take a look at this diagram. This is called a value chain diagram, and different companies draw them in lots of different ways. But you'll see some support activities up top, administrative, human resources, stuff like that, procurement, primary activities. What are the things that matter the most to this company? What do we do that matters? And what do we do because, like, the law makes us do it? It's not core to our business. It's not who we are. This value chain is what defines the purpose of a business. If you don't know your company's value chain, and if you don't know your team's value chain within that, then you're playing a game where you don't know the rules. Here's another diagram to look at. This is called a profit and loss statement, or a P&L. If you don't know how to read a P&L, and if your company doesn't have a P&L, you're playing a game where you don't know the rules. Like, understanding a P&L is to understand, what are our operating expenses? What do we spend money on? Where do we get money from? Why do people pay us that money? Like, what do they give it to us for? What's it cost us in order to deliver whatever it is they paid us the money for, and what's the difference in between those? What's our profit or our loss? And then how can I and my team contribute to that? How can we refine this? How can we make this better? How can we make these numbers more positive? What problem do we solve? I have a lot of people who I talk to who do not understand the problem they solve. I want to walk you through a really superficial example on this. Let's say you work for Ford. What do? Well, we manufacture cars. No, that's starting at the wrong end of the equation. Nobody woke up one morning in the 1800s and said, I need a car. Manufacturing cars was never the problem. Like, a lack of cars wasn't the problem. Here's how to look at that instead. The problem when people woke up is it takes too damn long to get from place to place. I need a faster horse. No, the solution is not a faster horse. The solution is I'm going to manufacture cars. I'm going to build something even better. I'm going to solve your problem. You don't know what your problem solve is. If you can't be a solution if you don't know what your problem is. Twist your thinking a little bit. Twist your thinking to be customer-centric. And I don't necessarily mean customer in the soft sense where, yeah, I work for the IT team and everyone in the company is my customer. No, because they're not paying you money. That's like a fun businessy thing to say, but it's BS. Your customers are the ones who pay you money. And if you're not in a position where you're directly getting money, you need to look at who is. Who in your organization is getting the money? They're the customer, right? The customer gives you the money. And this isn't the customer is always right either. This isn't just pandering to the customer. Customers wanted faster horses. Henry Ford could have done well just by breeding faster horses, but he didn't. He looked at his customers and he thought about their problems and he went back to first principles and he said, forget horses. If horses never existed, how would we solve this problem? The problem is I need to get from place to place. My customer needs to get from place to place. I'm going to solve that problem. All of this applies to you, it applies to your team, and it applies to their customers too. That's what a value chain is. That's what solution orientation is. That's what all of that is. It's understanding what value do I create for my customer, my end customer, the ultimate person who's paying money for our entire organization to exist. This is what it is when you say, I understand business. It means I understand why we're here, I understand what problem we're solving, and I understand my place in solving that problem. I understand my value chain. Now, I could go on about this. This is a topic that I love to talk about. I won't go on because I wrote a book about it. It's a good book. I think you should read it. We'll talk a little bit more later about it. And I want to start to wrap up a little bit here. I started off by saying you're more than just a scripter. And you are. You're an everythinger. You are a solution to an organization's technology needs. Remember that. That's part of your value chain. My organization has tech needs. I'm the solution. You're a contributor. You solve problems and you share those solutions. You are, or should be, a role model. You don't spend all your time looking forward and up the ladder. Sometimes you reach back and down and you help lift others up with you. You use your success to help bootstrap theirs, just as other people have used their success to help you. You're a business person. You align to what makes the business run. You're a futurist. You see what's coming and you position yourself accordingly. You're more than just a scripter. All right, so a little bit of housekeeping here. I got a couple of favors to ask. Here's the big one. Please support this book. If you've not seen me tweeting about it incessantly, the book is called Shell of an Idea, The Untold History of PowerShell. It's available on LeanPub. Here's the URL, LeanPub.com/shell of an idea with dashes in between. I have spent probably 2 months researching this, interviewing people who don't even work for Microsoft anymore. In fact, one of the reasons this book can finally be written is because most of the people involved don't work for Microsoft anymore, so there's no consequences. And like Jeffrey Snover is a technical fellow, so he's set. This is where PowerShell came from. Like they say, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. This is the history of our tool. This is the mistakes, the challenges, the hurdles, the successes, the brilliant ideas that sometimes didn't always work out. It's content complete. It's off to editing. So if you get it now, you're going to have to be patient with some typos, but you will get the typo-free version in about a month. But it is safe to go get it now, and please tell a friend. There's been a tremendous amount of investment on my part to go into this because I wanted to tell these stories. So I hope it's something that you feel you can support and get behind. And while you're at it, if you're in the mood for some additional light reading, LeanPub.com/u/Don Jones is where you'll find all of my recent books. I've been branching out into fiction. If you enjoy science fiction or fantasy, I know John Walls is on here. He can probably tell you how he feels about Alabaster, which is one of my first sci-fi books. There's Power Wave is a superhero book. Let's Talk Business is up there. There's a great book about troubleshooting. If you've got some junior folks on your team who are struggling with their troubleshooting mentality, there's a book called How to Find a Wolf in Siberia that I think they're going to love. And one more thing, this code should still be good for 40% off anything on Manning.com until the end of May, BTW Power 20. We were originally going to deploy this at PowerShell Summit, but that didn't happen. So the code should still be up there. It should still be good. I don't control this, not my thing, but maybe go get a book or something. The Month of Lunches series is vast, and there's a lot of authors that could use your support. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me ramble. Please hit me up on Twitter. Like if there's anything I brought up that you want to discuss or challenge or offer an expansion to, please hit me up on Twitter. I really do appreciate hearing from you, especially right now when I don't have as much human contact as I'm used to. But thanks for being here, and I hope all the rest of you have a great week.